Let me give you a quick way to actually win government contracts across the board. No matter your nation, no matter your industry, no matter the state where you are applying from. Okay, this is actually a guide for you if you are a beginner or you just an experienced business owner and you are trying to really refresh your knowledge. Okay, the first thing you want to do here is to assess your business. See, the whole thing is if you want to win government contracts at the federal level or at the state level, you have to know your strengths, you have to know your fortes, you have to know your pros and cons. So evaluate your small business to see if it has what it takes to win a government contract. Because see, the thing is that government contracting is a multi-billion, if not $1 trillion market every single year. You have a lot of players, big and small, and you got to really come to the table with some kind of strength, with some kind of competitive edge. Okay, so when it comes to evaluating your business, you have to make sure that you do your market research, that you are actually are positioning your business properly to actually win at least a contract. Okay, and you also have to find out those platforms where government contracts are actually listed. You have the Federal Procurement Data System, you have the USA Spending.gov, you have a Federal Agency Procurement Forecast, and those three platforms or those three processes will give you a lot of info when it comes to winning, when it comes to government contracts available, and also when it comes to the conditions for you to actually bid and actually win. For instance, if you take the Federal Procurement Data System, this is actually a repository of all federal contracting data for contracts over $25,000. Okay, and with this system, you can see which agencies have contracts and with whom, what agencies buy, and which contractors have contracts. And you know the whole thing is you can actually reach out to those contractors and possibly subcontract stuff as well. You can be a contractor or you can be a subcontractor. So that the bottom line is, if you want to make money, you have to be able to you have to be there when it comes to having the right fulfilling the right conditions and also proposing the solution that the government is looking for, especially when it comes to specific industries such as healthcare, when it comes to technology, when it comes to energy, and so on and so forth. So the thing is, when it comes to contracting with the government, after evaluating your business, it's important to also understand the basic requirements of the contract. Usually, those that info is actually listed in the RFP or RFQ or RFI, but make sure that you abide by the conditions. So the basic requirements are going to be crystal clear right off the bat. For instance, the government wants you to have a unique entity identifier. So your unique entity identifier is going to be a unique 12 character alphanumeric value. Okay, and this is actually, you will receive actually a UAI when you register with SAM at sam.gov. I just finished another video on sam.gov that actually explains everything to you when it comes to how to get your unique entity identifier. Also, don't forget your NAICS code. NAICS code is really important also because this is actually a way for the government to compartmentalize all the contracts that are coming out. So they want to really track which industry is actually getting all the contracts. So this is done at the GSA level, the Government Services Administration. So they want you to have a NAICS code, okay? NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification System. And NAICS codes classify businesses based on the particular product or service they supply. So your business will generally have a primary NAICS code, but it can also have multiple NAICS codes if it sells multiple products and services. So to actually find your NAICS code, you want to view the NAICS code list at the U.S. Census Bureau. And you also have to meet size standards. Okay, that's important. Meet the size standards. That's an important requirement to really pay attention to. The size standards, it's a critical because if you qualify, if you say you are a small business, you have to qualify for the small business size standards. Okay, and you want to register with sam.gov. Okay, to participate in government contracting, you got to register your business with the federal government systems for award management. And this is actually a database that I'm speaking about SAM. This is a database that government agencies search to find contractors. And finally, you need to maintain compliance. So in order to participate in government contracting, the thing is you got to comply with all laws and regulations. And by the way, I'm speaking about regulations and laws at the federal level, but also at the state level, state, local, county, city level. The federal government's purchasing process is governed by the Federal Acquisition Regulation. Okay, so that's important to keep in mind, especially if you want to win contracts over several states. Now, let me talk to you about how to win contracts this year. How do you actually go by actually increasing your chances of winning contracts? The thing is, you can actually increase your chance of winning a government contract by researching the federal marketplace and taking advantage of SBA resources. The SBA is a fantastic resource when it comes to government contracting because they have information about let's say about everything about every contract, okay, and how you can prepare your business plan, your proposal, your RFQ, your RFI, your RFP, and so on and so forth. Now, the thing is, if you want to find contracts, there are also a lot of databases you can use to find federal contracts to bid on. And similarly, there are multiple databases that government agencies use to find contractors, not just sam.gov, okay? For instance, you have the DSBS, that's the Dynamic Small Business Search. You have, so this is actually a database that a lot of government, let's say, agencies use to find small business contractors for upcoming contracts. Now, one thing for sure, if a contract is worth over $25,000, they have the agency issuing the contract has to list the contract on sam.gov. That's pretty good because this gives you an opportunity to actually make a little bit of money too. You can be a contractor, a primary contractor, or you can be a secondary contractor. You can be a subcontractor. Okay. You can also go to the GSA. So GSA, General Government System Administration. Okay. You are able to get some kind of opportunities there as well. And you also have the opportunity to get things done real fast. Okay. You also have bundling and consolidation. So if you think a federal agency has engaged, let's say, in bundling or consolidation practices that keep a small business from competing for a contract, you need to contact your local procurement center representative, your PCR. This is how the government is making sure that we have a healthy, a fair landscape, a level playing field for everybody. Okay. Also, one thing I want to say here is that you always have the opportunity to reach out to the SBA if you have questions. If they actually have a service within the agency that can help with all government contracting issues and matters. So that's pretty good. You want to really avail yourself of those opportunities. Let's say right off the bat. Now, let me talk to you about the types of contracts that you need to pay attention to. Again, I'm giving you the ultimate government contracting guide for beginners. The thing is that you have a lot of government contracts, and you have what they call competitive set-aside contracts. You have sole source set-aside contracts. Those are the top two, okay? Now, the competitive set-aside contracts basically just means that when at least two small businesses could perform the work or provide the products being purchased, the government sets aside the contract exclusively for small businesses. That's pretty good because, again, the government is trying to make sure things are fair for everybody, okay? With few exceptions, this happens automatically for all government contracts under $150,000. So some set-asides are open to any small business, but some are open only to small businesses who participate in the SBA contracting assistant programs. Okay, that's why you want to really associate yourself with the SBA right off the bat. So besides competitive set-aside contracts, you also have sole source set-aside contracts. So most contracts are competitive, but sometimes there are exceptions to this rule. Sole source contracts are a kind of contract that can be issued without a competitive bidding process. This usually happens in situations when only a single business can fulfill the requirements of a contract. Sometimes you have this in the military, for instance, okay? So to be considered for a sole source contract, you want to register your business with SAM and you want to participate in any contracting program you may qualify for. Now, in some cases, Sole source contracts must be published publicly and will be marked with an intent to sole source. Potential vendors can still view and bid on these contracts. Once the bidding process begins, the intent to sole source may be withdrawn. Okay. You also have set asides for government contracting programs. You have, for instance, the 80 Business Development Program. You have the HOP Zone Program. You have the Women Owned Small Business Federal Contract Program. You have the Service Disabled, the Veteran Owned Small Business Program. So you have a lot of opportunities. The whole thing is that you have to make sure that you are able to certify your business to take advantage of those set aside contracts. Okay. You can also think about joint ventures. I mean, the SBA has ventures or even JV programs that can really increase your chances of winning contracts. I want to talk to you about size standards. So if you think about government contracting, the government wants to make sure that all contracts are not allocated to big players. Okay, small business must have a chance to win too. So the SBA has a size standard that determines whether or not your business qualifies as small. So let me really talk about the size standards that you need to pay attention to. Size standards define the largest size a business can be to participate in government contracting programs and compete for contracts reserved or set aside for small businesses. And size standards vary by industry, and they are generally based on the number of employees or the amount of annual receipts the business has. Annual receipts here, I'm speaking about revenue. Okay, so there are common terms you need to be familiar with. You have affiliates, so you must include the employees or receipts of all affiliates when determining the size of a business. Affiliation with another business is actually based on the power to control, whether exercised or not. In other words, as long as the power to control is there is an affiliation program, an affiliation relationship. It doesn't matter if the control is exercised or not. Now, the power to control exists when an external party has 50% or more ownership. It may also exist with considerably less than 50% ownership by contractual arrangement, or when one or more parties own a large share compared to other parties. You also have annual receipts. So here we are speaking about total income or gross income plus the cost of goods sold. So here we're speaking about income. Okay, so gross sales minus cost of goods sold. You also have numerical requirements. So qualifying as small is actually one of the basic requirements that your business needs to meet before you can compete for government contracts. There are set aside for small businesses, and so basically you want to really make sure that you have you fit the size when it comes to number of employees. But one thing for sure, you got to be a for-profit business of any legal structure. It can be an LLC, LLP, S corporation, C corporation. You got to be independently owned and operated. You have to not to be a nationally dominant in your field, and you got to be physically located and operate in the U.S. or its territories. So that's important for you to increase your chance to win. And so one thing I want to say here is that size standards vary by industry. The cool thing is that the SBA has a size standards tool to see if your business qualifies as small for government contracting. So please avail yourself of that tool to see whether or not you qualify. Let me talk to you about governing rules and responsibilities. So if you are going to engage in government contracting, you better be aware of the governing rules and responsibilities. So as a small business, you got to comply with regulations that govern the government contracting process. Okay. So you have regulations at the federal level, but you also have regulations at the state level and also even at the local level. Regulations dealing with government contracting programs for small businesses are actually outlined, in a specific set of rules. Okay, the government purchasing process is governed by the Federal Acquisition Regulation, and some government agencies are authorized to have their own supplement to the FAR, to the FAR. Okay, something to really be aware of. Now, if you are a government contractor, You got to also comply with labor standards statutes. So you're speaking here about the Service Contract Act, the Contract Work Hours, Safety Standard Act, and more, as well as other statutes, unless the contract states that a particular statute is not applicable. Okay, it's one of those things where you have to really understand the contract provisions protecting the integrity of the government procurement process. Now, these provisions include the officials not to benefit clause, the anti-kickback provisions, organizational conflict of interest provisions, gratuities clause, and more. Okay, so you want to look for these clauses in any contract the government provides. You also have something called limitations to if you have subcontracting. In other words, if you want to subcontract, there are some limitations to be aware of. Okay, so under set aside award conditions, small business prime contractors are required to perform minimum levels of work on a government contract. So these limitations ensure that otherwise ineligible businesses don't use small or disadvantaged businesses merely as vehicles to access set aside contracts. Okay, so these limitations apply to contract set asides for small businesses when the contract amount exceeds $150,000 and all other set aside contracts under the HA, Hub Zone, Service Disabled, Veteran Owned, and Women Owned Small Business Program. So something to be aware of, especially when it comes to getting the job done while complying with regulations. I want to quickly talk to you about prime and subcontracting, and that's an important element to think about. Now, when it comes to prime contracting, prime contractor, those contractors work directly with the government. They manage any subcontractors and are responsible for ensuring that the work is completed as defined in the contract. Okay, so to become a prime contractor, you must first register with SAM. Okay, and you can search for federal contracting opportunities through SAM anytime. And you can also find historical information, historical award information, by going to the FBDS, the Federal Procurement Database Systems. And so that's for prime contracting. What about subcontracting? Well, unlike prime contractors, subcontractors do not work directly with the government, but instead they work for other contractors. So this allows contractors that are not prepared to work directly with a federal agency to still participate in federal procurements. Okay, some government contracts require other than small businesses, including large businesses, to subcontract with a small business. This creates more opportunities for small businesses to get involved in federal contracting. So that's really important. Now, there are some limitations on subcontracting, okay? And you got to just be aware of this. And this actually has to be in the specific contract that you actually win if you are a primary contractor. There is also some kind of reporting obligations when it comes to subcontracting. So you have to report any subcontract, let's say tally. Okay, so to track compliance with subcontracting requirements, large businesses are required to submit regular subcontract reports using the electronic subcontract reporting system, the ESRS. You'll need to submit reports even if you don't have any active subcontracts for the reporting period. So that's an important element, especially if you are trying to work with the government at multiple levels. Okay, but the cool thing is that you have dates. You have a mid-year individual subcontracting report is actually due on April 30th. You have an annual individual subcontracting report is due on October 30th. You also have a summary subcontracting report individual that's actually also due on October 30th. Okay, so you also have a summary subcontracting report commercial due on October 30th. So there are dates that actually will apply to your specific industry, but also business. So in closing remarks in today's conversation, I gave you the ultimate government contracting guide for beginners. I actually covered a lot of points. I thank you so much for your attention. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.